The altars are cold. The marble columns that once held up the heavens are cracked, and ivy creeps over the spaces where priests used to pour offerings. After thousands of years of ruling the ancient world, the Greek gods fell silent. By the reign of the Roman Emperor Theodosius I, pagan temples were closed by law. The rites of sacrifice were completely outlawed, and the Olympic Games were abolished. A singular, invisible god replaced the sprawling pantheon, and the old deities were cast out of their shrines. Yet even at the peak of modern engineering, they are waiting for us. When humanity decided to leave the Earth and touch the Moon, we built a 360-foot-tall rocket and named it the Saturn V, borrowing the Roman name for the Titan Cronus. We still carry their ghosts in our daily vocabulary. A vulnerable spot is an Achilles' heel. Unleashing unintended consequences is opening Pandora's box. Our ships, our psychological complexes, and our planets all bear their names. This raises a question of survival. How do gods who lost their priests and their sacrifices manage to outlive empires and become the most recognizable figures in human history? The Olympians reflect a specific anthropomorphic design. They weren't engineered as perfect, infallible creators, but as flawed mirrors of the human condition. In the earliest Greek cosmos, power belonged to unfeeling elemental forces. In the beginning, there was only chaos, a yawning void without form or direction. From that nothingness came Gaia, the vast and unshaking earth. This was followed by the era of the Titans. Figures like Kronos ruled the universe with brute force and survival instincts. It was an age before human-like justice, where a sky god would imprison his own children out of fear and revulsion. Then the cosmos shifted. The Titans were cast down by a new generation of gods who took on a new shape. These Olympians possessed idealized human bodies, complete with sculpted muscle, faces, and complex, unpredictable personalities. They possessed our vices, dialed up to a cosmic scale. Hera held on to calculated jealousy that shaped the fate of mortals. Ares was the personification of undisciplined, bloody-handed rage. They fell in love, held petty grudges, and betrayed each other. The Greeks mapped abstract forces onto a human frame. They took the terrifying unpredictability of a lightning storm or the changing of the seasons and attached them to biological drives: ego, passion, and rage. Attaching human drives to the forces of nature turned raw power into a set of characters. This shift allowed for narrative depth and audience empathy. You could bargain with these gods because you understood why they were angry. Making the gods as flawed as their worshippers gave them a unique kind of psychological immortality. Long after the literal belief in their thunderbolts faded, their emotional resonance remained. Between these flawed gods and the earth below stood the heroes. Mortal men and women, often born of divine blood, served as a bridge between the heavens and humanity through extreme physical and emotional struggle. But beneath the heroes, and beneath the Olympians themselves, sat the engine of the Greek universe, Moira, or fate. This power governed even the divine. Zeus himself could not overturn a thread once it was cut. Because fate was absolute, mortals sought to understand it through oracles and omens. Kings and commoners climbed the mountainside to the temple of Apollo at Delphi, seeking to glimpse their predetermined paths through the riddles of the Pythia. This resulted in a specific kind of heroic resolve. Achilles knew he would not return from Troy, and he sailed anyway. Hector knew he would die defending his city, and he still strapped on his armor. They accepted their fates with dignity. This tension between an unbending cosmic destiny and the mortal choice to face it head-on provides the gravity that keeps these stories relevant. When the Romans rose to power, they repurposed the Greek pantheon into political tools. They changed the names, from Zeus to Jupiter and Ares to Mars, but they maintained the human-like traits that made the gods useful for reflecting Roman values. Eventually, the official era of pagan worship came to an end. The gods were forced out of their temples and into the margins of society, their statues left to weather in the sun. Yet the stories entered a preservation phase. Monks and scholars in libraries spent centuries copying the works of Homer, Hesiod, and Sophocles. They condemned the theology, but they found the poetry indispensable. During the Renaissance, these stories were rediscovered. The gods rose again on canvases and marble blocks in Florence and Rome, standing at the center of Western art as symbols of human nature. They evolved into archetypes, symbolic representations of universal human experiences. When a sculptor carved Apollo, they were capturing a specific ideal of grace and light that transcended literal ancient religion. The disappearance of the Greek religion served as the catalyst for its survival. Unburdened by the requirements of a literal church, the myths were free to become a global narrative framework. Today, these figures live in the realms of psychology and literature. Carl Jung saw them as patterns eternally re-emerging within the human mind. They serve as mirrors for the modern self, curated and studied for their insight into our behavior. We continue to tell these stories because they provide a vocabulary for the human experience. They give us a way to articulate the pain of hubris, the agony of choice, and the inevitability of death. While the temples are in ruins, the gods successfully migrated. They left the stone altars and took up residence in the human subconscious. The Greek myths endure as a blueprint for the human condition, providing the framework for how we understand ourselves.